President Obama went to South Africa for the memorial service of Nelson Mandela, as did a lot of world leaders. He's about to give a speech, of course, and as he was doing that, there was a line of world leaders, and he was shaking all their hands. And along came Raul Castro. Well, that's because he was standing right there, along with other world leaders. It's not like he jumped in or anything like that. And there they are. Oh my God, they shook hands. Oh, for Christ's sake, how could that happen? They shook hands. Momentous event, which we, as soon as I saw the pictures in the morning, knew would cause a huge ruckus among conservatives, and they have delivered. We'll get to that in a second. But first, I want to show you CNN's amusing reaction. Let's watch.
Now, there have been a lot of questions raised about security here, and before I came on, we were walking around and talking to security officials.
Castro, he's shaking hands with Raul Castro.
As Christian points out, President Obama just shook hands with Raul Castro from Cuba. Now,
Dilma
Christian,
Rousseff of Brazil.
what does that say as a gesture?
It says that this is a moment of reconciliation for Mandela, and President Obama is doing the diplomatic thing.
Oh my God! Wait, did you see that, guys? He shook hands with Raul Castro! And he didn't even melt. That's weird. No devices went off. And then, as they pointed out, he also shook hands with the leader of Brazil. He's not that happy with us because of the NSA spying. Yet that's what happens when you get together at a funeral and you're decent human beings. You shake hands. What was President Obama supposed to do? Punch both of them in the face? Okay, now more interesting reactions. They bring in John King for an instant political analysis of this world-shaking event. Well, literally, I suppose.
John King, if we can bring you in, I don't know if you just saw it, but President Obama just shook hands with Raul Castro, former leader de Klerk, and others as he came up. What does that mean politically? Is it just about the moment? Is that satisfy the interest of respect? How do you think it plays politically?
Well, I think what the president will say is the conversation you're just having, that this is a moment of reconciliation, this is a moment of tribute to a great man, and it was not a time to make a political statement, so you shake hands out of respect for the moment and move on.
We have not had a world leader or an American leader shake hands with a Cuban leader since 2000, when Bill Clinton and Fidel Castro shook hands at the United Nations. Of course, the Republicans are right that a Republican would never, ever do that, except for the fact that Richard Nixon also shook hands with Fidel Castro in 1959. Different times, but certainly, and that's when he was vice president, but they certainly did do so. Now, are you ready for the Republicans and their outrage? Well, here it comes. First, Senator Marco Rubio, who's from Florida and, of course, a Cuban-American, says if he was going to shake his hand, he should have asked about those basic freedoms Mandela was associated with that are denied in Cuba. That's right. In that 3/4 of a second, he should be like, what about all those basic freedoms that Mandela gave, but you don't in Cuba? I'm really pissed at you. Plus, I'd like to punch you or slap you, but I gotta go. Okay. I'm not sure that was the proper occasion for that, but Marco's just warming you up. But before we go to the rest of the reaction, let me show you President Obama's reaction, or at least the White House. They, of course, panic immediately, and they say, quote, this wasn't a pre-planned encounter. We didn't mean it, dog. We didn't mean it, I swear. They continue to say, above all else, today is about honoring Nelson Mandela, and that was the president's singular focus at the memorial service. We appreciate the people from all over the world are participating in this ceremony. Look, the quotes aren't that bad overall, but I'm a little annoyed that they have to even bother. I'd be like, if I was the administration, I'd say, yeah, he shook Raul Castro's hand because he was there. And that's what we do when we are world leaders. We don't spit in each other's eyes. We shake each other's hands and we move on. It doesn't mean anything more than that. Doesn't mean I agree with him in any way. Doesn't mean he agrees with me in any way. You know, here's a sign that we don't agree with them. We have an economic embargo that has lasted over 50 years. I think the message is loud and clear. We don't agree with the Cuban administration. So now, undeterred by any of this, the Republicans weigh in. First, let me go to Congresswoman Ross Lathanen. She's also a Cuban-American, also from Florida. She has some choice words for President Obama. Let's listen.
Congresswoman, you are of Cuban heritage. You have long been a critic of the Castro regime. When you saw the handshake between the president and Raul Castro, what are your thoughts?
Well, it is nauseating. I was born in Cuba, had to leave my native homeland because of the communist oppression, along with my family. And he shook the hand of a murderer, a thug, and those are bloodied hands. But I worry more about policy than I do about a handshake. If it's just a handshake that's not going to produce any change, well, I think Raul Castro should have listened to what Obama said. He said some of these leaders say that they praise Mandela, but they don't really act in the way that they respect the human rights of their countrymen.
Those are bloodied hands. How dare he do that? Now, she tempered it a little bit at the end, of course, but so far they're not very happy about this encounter. Again, I literally don't know what he's supposed to do. But again, I'm positive that the Republicans would never do anything like this. I mean, be seen with a brutal dictator like that. Like, for example, Condoleezza Rice, she certainly would have never been caught dead with a guy like Gaddafi, right? Wait a minute. What is going on? Now, of course, they're smiling. They're at the same event. In that particular picture, they are not shaking hands. So let's give her a buy on that. So now here's a guy we know we wouldn't shake hands with, Saddam Hussein. I mean, we had 2 wars against him, right? I mean, he was a danger to the whole world, his own people, and certainly the United States of America. So, for example, our Secretary of Defense that invaded his country, we wouldn't shake his hand, ever, right? Wait a minute. That appears to be Donald Rumsfeld shaking Saddam Hussein's hand. That was, of course, before Rumsfeld and his cohorts decided to launch 2 different wars against Saddam Hussein. That's when Saddam Hussein was working with the CIA. Oops. Now, finally, those are important people in the Bush administration, but Bush himself, of course, wouldn't be caught dead with a dictator, especially one from the Middle East, right? So what's weird is his choice in this picture to make out with King Abdullah. Now, I know Saudi Arabia is our ally, so that's okay that they're dictators. Until, of course, one day it isn't okay, and they will denounce and reject them and say, how dare anyone ever make physical contact with them, let alone the snuggling that Bush did with King Abdullah. All right, now, I saved the best for last. Here comes John McCain, and he's going to take it even more over the top than Ross Lathan did.
Senator, what do you make of the handshake between the president and Raul Castro in South Africa today?
It just gives Raul some propaganda to continue to prop up his dictatorial, brutal regime. That's all.
Should he not have done it?
Of course not. Why should you shake hands with somebody who's keeping Americans in prison? I mean, what's the point? Neville Chamberlain shook hands with Hitler.
So the fact that President Obama did what every world leader in that situation did, at a memorial service for Nelson Mandela, known for bringing people together in reconciliation, dared to shake the hand of Raul Castro, who was in line with everyone else, well, then he's Neville Chamberlain shaking hands with Hitler. Well, I expected that the Republicans would be furious about this, and over the top, I'm glad to see they did not disappoint us.